I'm trying to add somebody here, so give me some time. I'm trying to grab someone. There we go. Accept. Add. There we go. You there? So it's adding. I don't know. But you're not on here. Sitting here trying to figure this out. Accept yours. Accept. No answer from live video guest. Do it again. Accept. Add. Saying it's adding, but there we
There we
go.
go. We're good now.
About time. Now I got to get that over on my YouTube somehow. Dude, this is so tough.
Yeah, it's technology, man.
Oh, my Lord.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it, dude. We're like a half an hour behind, and everyone's probably on my YouTube channel, and I don't even know how to even get it streaming on that right now as well.
Yeah, should be able to just go over there and comment and tell everyone to come on over.
I should be able to, but then I'll end up losing you.
That's we
You know
don't
what I
want
mean?
that.
Like, I've been trying to get in this stuff, but it was just difficult.
Absolutely.
Now I got to go ahead and try to hopefully get everybody over from that. The thing is, I have to go ahead and how can I send a link? Tap the show button, manage the links.
Copy the link right there.
Uh, uh, show links to let viewers know about the websites or other accounts. Let me see here. Add new link. Viewers can open during your live. No, I don't want that. Featured link. Watch me end up doing something wrong here.
Right.
I'm gonna end up booting us. This is ridiculous.
You could just comment on that one that because when I went on there were some people on there that said that they were there and stuff. You could just comment on that and tell everyone to come on over.
Yeah, but I'll end up kicking us out of here.
That's true.
Um, allow audience to ask to participate. No. I'll get back out of here. But we have to go ahead and I have to somehow try to get it over there. Hopefully
Did you see that copy link part down below?
the copy link, yeah, but I hit that and it says manage links.
Hmm.
I see that link at the bottom, but it says add a new link,
Yeah.
recently added and saved links. Let's go to
You could
save
just
links.
share it on Facebook.
The links you save will be available to share during your live. No, I don't want that.
You could just share it on Facebook and say, come on live or something.
Someone just said hi to you.
Absolutely.
Try to get more and more people in
Sure.
here. Hopefully if I can. Hopefully I can grab my wife in. I can't get a hold of her because I'm going to have to yell. Hold on a second. Dave, I'm in all my lockers. Now everybody over there. We'll see how this goes. I
Yeah,
just told her to message everyone on here.
you can just start rattling off some questions, and we can get this thing going, and people can come on and then they can watch it back always. So
Yeah, all right. Well, I actually wrote down, man. I really
absolutely,
you stopping by and just taking some time out
absolutely,
to talk to me. Now, I do have a bunch of questions here for you,
sure,
but
yeah,
just in
absolutely.
case anyone else that has been watching, this is Jacob. I started watching his page and everything else on Facebook, but he's also with Kistler, and he likes Kistler reels, so and Rod, so that's another reason. But we'll get into that here in a little bit. I do have a question. So, how long have you been fishing?
Yeah, gosh, I can remember back when I was a young kid. My grandparents had a house on Shawano Lake here, right by where I live close to now, and they had a house right on the lake. I'd walk on the dock and just start fishing. My family, as an entire family, owned a marina right on Shawano Lake, called S&S Marina at the time. So I would just fish there after school when they would drop me off there. So I'd fish there. So gosh, I mean, I've been fishing since I could even walk and remember, really. So, and that just escalated.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Now, people are probably wondering how old you are.
Yes, I am. I just turned 21. So
Just turned
just
21 and you're already in the professional league
yep,
already.
yep, just turned 21. So
Dang.
yeah, no, it's been crazy.
So, how long have you been a pro angler?
So I've been fishing semi-professionally now I started in 2020 and I fished the FLW Toyota Series at the time. Fished the Northern Division and won Eastern Division on Hartwell. Did really good, made the championship, and kind of just started rolling from there. Ranger approached me through the boat dock, and I kind of went that route, and so that's kind of where the connection came from there through the boat dock here in Wisconsin. So we got through that route, and it was just a domino effect, man. Honestly, God's put the right people in my life at the right time, and it's just kind of kept rolling.
That's
So yeah,
impressive. That is very, very impressive, especially
been
the
a good
fact that
ride.
you just hit 21.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I will say high school fishing helped out a lot. Going through high school fishing stuff, that really did help. I think that was one of the biggest things that I can attribute to a lot of my success was going through the high school series. Without the high school series, I don't know if I would be here right now, honestly. So,
I have another one for you. At what point did you know that that's what you wanted to do in life?
oh man, probably. I mean, honestly, when I was a young kid watching Bassmaster on TV and stuff. I mean, I always had that kind of drive and thought in my head and wanted to do it. So that's kind of just where it started from, and it kind of just kind of just started spiraling. Got one of those Walmart tackle boxes that said Bass on it when I was really young. I thought that was the best thing at that point, and kind of just rolled from there. So really, since I saw Bassmaster on TV, which I mean, I was probably, oh man, I was probably 12, 11, and kind of just got the bug and started fishing real slow. Starting up real slow through the club series and stuff around the house, and kind of just expanded once I hit high school. So
So, how did that work living up north when everything freezes? How did that work
it's
out for you?
it
So,
is terrible. I will say it is terrible. Yeah, no, I mean it's a lot of the months, half the year almost, you're iced out. I mean, even right now we got a huge snowstorm, we got ice on the lakes, so we're still stuck here in Iceland. So as soon as it unthaws, but I mean, what was nice is spring break. A couple times I remember my grandparents would because they travel around in their RV, so my grandparents would go to like Table Rock Lake a lot of times,
all
Grand
right.
there, and me and Dad would go down and stay with them. So
So,
that's a lot of earlier memories is going down there with them. So I'm just that's kind of how it started to shift to going out of state, and then started traveling with the FLW at the time, high school series, and Bassmaster, doing both of those. So yeah.
Now, being a pro angler, do you have time for anything else?
It is tight, I will say. Uh, doing one division, the last couple of years, I had a lot of time. I not a lot, but I had a lot more time than I do now. But fishing all nine, I can already see, looking at my schedule, that it's a tight packed year. I mean, I'm headed to the Classic. I'm gonna go watch the Classic down in Knoxville. So flying there Wednesday, gonna get back home on Monday, and then in a week and a half after that, I leave to Toledo Bend for the next tournament down in Louisiana for the Bassmaster Open, and then I head to Grant or Lake was it Lake Eufaula after that to pre-practice for a little bit, and then I head home for 3 days, and then I turn and burn to Virginia for pretty much I'll be gone for about a month-ish at that point, traveling to we got two back-to-backs, so Bugs Island in Virginia, and then we head to Bugs Island, then we head to Wheeler. So
Does it wear you out
uh I mean,
mentally?
the first one definitely kind of, I wasn't ready. Like, my body wasn't ready since I've been sitting around a lot this winter. So my body wasn't ready. Mentally, I was prepared for it just because I had plenty of time to prepare for it since I couldn't fish. So no, I mean, my body was hurting a little bit after it, but I mean, it wears you out a little bit, but you gotta love it and really, really can't live without it to get going through it. So I mean, I cannot live without this. Trust me. It's not bad, honestly.
Now, what's the biggest difference between a pro angler and an amateur angler, in your opinion?
I think a lot of it, honestly, has to do with decision making.
All right.
Um, and decision making as far as decision making, I'll give you a prime example. So at this last Eufaula event, I made a decision about at noon on the second day to go back to the hard spot. I caught 16 and a half pounds off of the first day, and they just weren't there. But they were acting like they were wanting to chase. I mean, I had a 4-pounder following my Carolina to the boat, so I knew that there was something going on, right? You know, there was something different. They didn't want something dragging on the bottom like in pretty much the entire week. So I tied on that DT14, and that decision boated 21 pounds in a couple hours. So, I mean, just stuff like that you kind of just think of on the fly. I mean, earlier in practice, I had a 6-pounder choke a DT10 on a hard spot. And so I knew they would bite a crankbait with the water temp. I mean, I knew they would bite one. So I decided to tie it on, and just decision making like that, I think, is a lot of it, honestly.
Now, what was the choice of the color that you threw?
It's an off hue white. It's in the Ike's custom color.
All right.
Yeah, exactly off the top of my head, but it's like an off hue white. It's a really good color, as well as Big Shad's a really good color as well. So
All right. Now, what do pro fishermen do you actually look up to most? Who do you look up to most?
oh
It's
man.
out there. Right?
Um, no, honestly, I mean, guys like Patrick Walters, stuff like that. Just guys that fish offshore. I'm an offshore guy, so anyone that fishes offshore is definitely
I'm
is definitely one of my favorites, just because of that. So
definitely gonna have to get some tips because I can't stand fishing
yeah,
offshore.
no, I mean, I for the first year, honestly, around home and stuff, I used to kind of just go around the bank and stuff, and that's just kind of what I did at the time, because that's what I felt comfortable with. And then slowly but surely, I started, kind of working my way out farther and farther. And I mean, especially here up in Wisconsin, I mean, you can catch them out of 50 foot. I've now that I'm kind of going down south on some of the deeper lakes, I mean, you can catch them pretty deep, suspended over timber and stuff. So it all depends on body of water, but no, I mean, offshore fishing is definitely something that I luckily unlocked and really got confidence in. So,
How long did it take you to adjust to go from the bank to offshore?
oh, so the first year, like I said, was strictly I did nothing but skip docks, just because that's all I at the time knew, because I didn't know anyone that really knew how to bass fish. So I had to teach myself everything I know off YouTube, and trial and error was another big one. So I would say, to get comfortable offshore, I would say probably 2018, I started kind of feeling comfortable. And then 2019, I was really starting to like offshore fishing. And then 2020 was pretty much, I'm like, I really rather not catch them shallow. And plus, at the time before live scope, there was more guys up shallow than there was offshore. But now with live scope, obviously that's changed a little bit. But you had a lot of stuff to yourself at the time just because, I mean, all you had was the side scan, down scan, and sonar. So
Now,
you could find stuff that you could get away from people. So
since you brought up live
yeah,
scope, all right, I'm gonna ask your honest opinion because there's people that go both ways on it.
absolutely.
All right, do you think it's right to have that in there at this point in time, or would you rather not have it? You know what I mean?
I think, and this is just the way I look at it, I think it's another tool in the
Okay.
box. I think that, I mean, you still have to catch the fish.
Yeah.
That's the biggest argument I make for it is you still have to catch them because if I caught every fish I saw on active target, I mean, it would be incredible. But you do not catch every fish you see on active target, and you would be amazed at the amount of fish that you don't catch once you see them because they're starting to get used to the sonar pinging of that now. So,
I
I mean, even
have one, so
before,
that's why I'm asking.
yeah, I mean, even
I have,
before,
I have the live active.
yeah, I mean, even before at the very beginning of this whole, active target forward facing sonar, at the very beginning, they would still not bite if just because you saw them, just because, they don't bite right away. So,
All right, now out of all the lakes you fished so far, which one's your favorite one?
uh, I really, I mean, I'm not gonna be biased, but Eufaula is impressive. I'm not gonna lie. That lake has got them in it for sure, out of state. I mean, it's impressive for a lake that really doesn't have any grass or any hydrilla whatsoever
Yeah.
because they sprayed it and killed it. It's a pretty impressive lake. I'm not gonna lie. So that lake's definitely close to my heart now for sure. But I mean, and just especially the way it sets off, kind of offshore fishing. They get on really weird stuff out there, just weird little hard spots and corners and turns and stuff. So it's a cool lake to fish. But I love Hartwell, love Chickamauga. Chickamauga is probably one of my favorite lakes. I will say that's probably number one. Some of my best memories I've ever had was on Hartwell. I caught a 32.5 pound bag there last year
No,
in June.
nothing in Texas?
No, actually,
Wow.
well, I mean, I fished in Texas now that I've been in Toledo Bend. I went there to pre-practice, but I caught a 7.38 there in pre-practice. So that, I mean, it's got them, but I'd never really gone into a lot of lakes in Texas, other than just Toledo Bend now. So no, Chickamauga is a really good lake.
I haven't been there yet. Like I've
Yeah,
really wanted to go fish it, but
it's
it's
impressive.
so it's I think to the point that it's getting so heavily fished, but I can't say that because look at the lakes in Texas. They're so heavily fished and
Yeah.
they still produce 10 pounder after 10 pounder.
Yep. No, they still produce a lot, and honestly, I mean, everyone always thought that the ledge fishing on Chickamauga was slower, and sure, it's not as what it used to be, but that 32-pound bag I caught on Chickamauga last year, that all came off deep water fishing. Two came off brush piles, and the rest came off ledges. So I mean,
That's impressive.
they're out there. I mean, I had a 9.5, a 7.5, a 6.5, and I mean they're out there.
Now I have another one for you. Now, if you had to pick only three lures
Yep.
for a tournament, what three would you pick?
Number one would be a drop shot because you can just get bites. I got confidence in it. And you can put fish in the boat from Wisconsin to Texas. So that's number
All
one.
right.
Number two would for sure be a Omega custom tackle football jig. That's just what I got confidence in. A 3/4 ounce. You can do anything. You can hop it. You can stroke it. You can drag it. You can do anything you want with that. And the third would honestly probably be a swim bait. And swim bait obviously is a big category, but whether it be from a 3.25 or a 5 or 6 inch, a swim bait just gets it done. But if I had to pick a size swim bait, like a 3.75, you can do a lot with a 3.75 swim bait. So,
All right. Now, I'm gonna ask you, even though I know you have, with the hat on
yep.
now, what's your favorite rods right now and your reels? Now, what technique specific do you use them for, and why did you choose them?
Okay. Yeah. So, So I'm rocking Kistler. Been with them now. This is going on 2nd year. Went to ICAST with them last year, and I will say Trey Kistler is one of the best guys in the industry. He's stand up. What he says is the truth. He doesn't. I mean, he doesn't hop around the circuit. He'll tell it to you directly the way it is, and that's something that I look up to in the industry. So. He's definitely he's a really good guy, Christian guy, which obviously really helps in this industry. A lot of companies don't want to go forward about that, and he's very forward about his
I
Christian.
see it.
So that's something big to me. But I mean, as far as the rod selections go with that, I mean, the Helium T-Bone, by far the best, lightest rods I've picked up. And the Helium is just, I think is one of the best rods out there. So the Helium's really got my heart over the last years. So I have mostly Heliums with the Series 1.
What's your most used rod?
Most used rod, just from being up north, would be a spinning rod, and it would be the Z-Bone light. It would be the medium light Z-Bone 7 foot spinning, just because I'm up north. But in general, going traveling and stuff, I would say a 7.6 medium heavy helium, just because you can do a lot of things with a 7.6 medium heavy helium. So it's a pretty versatile rod.
Now, what's your preference on gear ratios?
Gear ratios, I keep it pretty simple. I stick in the seven range. I really don't like high gear ratios. I think you lose a lot of torque when you go to high gear ratios. Sure, you can pick up line, but you lose. I mean, it's the same thing as a car or something. Lower gear ratio. And the same as anything really. Lower gear ratio. That's why you crank with a lower gear ratio, because it has more torque. So I really don't like going over that 7 mark, just because you start losing torque. So.
Now, how do you prepare for a tournament?
Months in advance. I mean, ever since the schedule came out of the opens this year, I've been doing research on every single lake. I mean, I've looked at every single one of them, all 9 this year. I've already looked at and done research on. I have a whole list on my phone of things I want to look at already on Google Maps.
That's
That
impressive.
screenshot. I'll circle things on Google Map. I'll go through when the lake was lower and stuff and look to see what's out there. YouTube, Navionics. I'll just sit on Navionics, stare at it, look to see kind of what they'll set up on, take screenshots on my phone and circle areas I want to fish.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, months. I honestly, before you follow, I mean, I as soon as, like I said, as soon as the schedule came out, I did research on all of them, and then about a month before you follow, I did no lake research except you follow for about a month straight.
Wow.
So yeah, no,
Now,
it's
another one.
every day for a month.
Another one for you. Any rituals, habits, routines that you do before fishing?
Yeah, no, I mean, not crazy stuff. I mean, I like to get up pretty early. I don't like to deal with the mess of boats at takeoffs and stuff.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I don't get too crazy with stuff. I like to listen to a genre of different genres of music on the way to the ramp, depending on how I feel. If I'm feeling really motivated and want to go throw a crankbait or something, I'll listen to some rock. Or if I'm scaled back and want to fish finesse or something, I'll listen to some Christian music or something like that. But no, I really don't get too crazy with any routines and stuff. Definitely coffee. I'm a coffee lover. Need coffee
So
or some kind of
much.
caffeine, Red Bull or something. I mean, I need I need caffeine to function. So
I would
definitely
go
some
through so
caffeine.
I would go through so much Mountain Dew. I was like a
Yeah,
Mountain Dew fiend
I
forever.
normally I don't like drinking soda, but I guess I mean it's not any better, a lot better than caffeine. But I try to keep my anything caffeinated except coffee to a limit. So
What about Bangs? Do you ever drink those?
what's that?
Those energy drinks, Bang.
No, nope, don't drink those. The only one I'll drink if I'm in like a desperate situation on the road and I'm getting tired is I'll do the Red Bull watermelon from Red Bull. That is a really it's a really good energy drink. So it's really good.
And I also got another one. So, what advice would you give me going forward as I try to pursue and making a career in this?
Uh,
What advice would you give me?
I will say the biggest thing since I've been in the industry, going to ICAST, seeing how everything gets operated at ICAST, uh, there's a lot more that goes into the behind the scenes stuff. And I will say the biggest thing is making relations with sponsors and making sure that it's not, you don't want to push it to, you don't want to push the sponsor stuff to a point where people think it's fake. They want real. Nowadays, people want real. That's why I see guys like Matt Robertson doing so good. He's real. I mean, you see what you get.
Yeah.
Trust me, you see what you get with him. So, I mean, people want real nowadays. They don't want fake.
I love the
And
mullet, man.
yeah, no, I mean he rocks. I mean he does what he does. I mean he's him, and that's why he's great in marketing is because he's him. And I think that's what some people lack is understanding that you don't have to force things. Just put it out there and let people know about it, and then at that point that's their choice. But I think people try to force things as far as marketing goes down people's throats and really try to be like, hey, this you need this. Like just let it be natural. I mean, that's the biggest thing is just let everything in this industry be natural, and connections is another big thing. Just
Yeah.
have connections because it was pretty crazy to see at ICAST what connections would do for you. So
Well, I
connections,
see that. I mean, you can watch some people like how I follow like Milliken for like a couple years now,
yeah,
and just to see where he went from to having his own rods, and now he's creating baits just for 6 cents, just because and they're working.
absolutely.
It's just funny.
Yeah, no, I mean
Now, also,
it's definitely good stuff.
now I also wanted to ask any advice about going back to Dale
Yeah,
Holler, but you knew that I just went there Saturday. All right. Now, people are asked this, and this about it. I said, I can't give you any answers, really. I said it was God for one. I said I had my boater that took me out there,
yeah,
and I had to try to figure it out because I caught one on a jerkbait,
yeah,
and then I struck out for like 4 hours. Like I could not figure it out. And like you said, you fish deep.
yeah.
I don't. So I didn't bring stuff to try to. I mean, I had a jig,
Okay.
and I had a drop shot, but they weren't biting that,
Yep.
and they were biting his jerk bait. So I had to try to figure it out. Now, here's my question:
Yep.
it's going to be the same temperature, all
Okay.
right, in a couple weeks. It's still going to be cold down here,
Yep.
which is it was warm. Now it got cold again.
Yep.
So more than likely, I caught them in grass flats.
Yep.
All right. So the weather's going to be the same. Do you actually think that they'll still be stacked up in that grass like how they were?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people think that as soon as it warms up, they just flood the bank. Now, I will say the only exception is up here. When you get in the north and it warms up, they will just flood the bank.
Yeah.
Um, but down south, that's just not the case. When it gets warm, they'll trickle up shallow. But it's not a full-fledged spawn, everything goes to the bank. It's more kind of just slowly they'll work their way to the bank. And at least for me, like at Eufaula, those fish were still cold. I mean the first and the reason I was fishing offshore the entire time almost, I gave myself a half an hour every day during practice to go shallow, just to keep it honest, to say I pretty much did it. But the reason I stayed deep was because the first fish I caught in practice was deep and it was ice cold. I mean, ice cold. And the water temp, it said it was like 67. I mean, and then in the back pockets, you would get like 70. So it said it was warm water, but it wasn't warm,
To them.
far below the surface. It was still cold. And that's something I immediately clicked in my head is, hey, these fish have no idea how deep that it's time to spawn. Sure, there was fish spawning shallow, but
Oh
those
yeah.
are all just resident fish. So your resident fish, once it gets warm, they'll spawn. But those deep fish, it's a time of year thing, and the time of day and how long
So like
the days are. So that's the biggest thing.
yeah, because that was just my question because like it was weird, like I don't want to give a whole lot out, but with
Yeah,
my video coming out. But at the same time is like it was weird, like it just clicked because I was watching him and he was struggling because he kept thinking that he was getting bites, but he was getting stuck in grass.
absolutely.
All right, so the only thing that I thought in my head, I'm like, all right, well, if he's getting stuck in grass and he keeps, reeling up fish, what about throwing, my quarter-ounce swim bait? And I
Yep.
just tied it on and just chucked it out there, and for however long,
Yeah.
I didn't get a bite, and I couldn't figure out why, but I was too high, and I didn't know that. I didn't have my live active target. I didn't have any of that. So I didn't know how deep my quarter ounce swim bait was.
Absolutely.
So then just, just for some giggles, I just launched it out there. I counted to 20, just let it until my line went slack and it was just floating. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm down at the bottom.
Right.
And then all of a sudden I started slow rolling it and I could feel it hitting the grass. And then that's when I got my first bite. So I got that one.
Yeah.
Then I tried it again, just to see if it was luck. And then I caught another one. I'm like, all right, maybe I'm on to something. So we just kept popping from side to side to side. And I was watching because I could see this back here on his boat, but I didn't know what he was doing up front. But I'm looking at every single spot it's every high spot. So I'm sitting there just paying attention. I'm like, all right, he's on every high spot. So I'm looking at where the high spots are. And I started fishing, over at these high spots. And then it just clicked.
Yep.
It was just different.
And that kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, which was decision making. And I think, and that is, I will say, that is, traveling. That is the biggest thing, is decision making, knowing, when exactly you need to change, when you need to do something different. That is the biggest thing, is decision making, because I mean that's a perfect prime example is your boater is doing something different. You decided to make a switch, and that was a decision that paid off for you. So that is, I think that's one of the most underestimated things, is decision making. But I will say that is key when you're traveling and fishing different bodies of water, is decision making. So
But I also learned something else different because then he asked what I was throwing because he stopped getting bites and I was getting the bites.
yep,
So I told him it was a quarter ounce, swim bait. But I noticed something different because he was using a Kitech.
yep,
Rich, I don't know if anyone that's in here knows what a Kitech is, but it's a ribbed swim bait. I was using a Largo shad, which is nice and smooth.
yep,
All right. He wasn't getting the bites and throwing in exact same spots where I was, but I was getting the bites.
yep,
And I didn't know that, just by looking at that little bit of a difference made a huge difference.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean it's the small things, really. I mean, it can be the smallest little thing, smallest color change. I mean, times up, even up here, you could change a color, just a really different hue, and it'll explode the amount of fish you'll catch. You'll go from catching, one or two every couple minutes to sometimes every cast. I mean, it's just the really small details, and it will make a big difference, especially if you got a big school, like I was throwing at. I mean, a small difference, going from, I guess not small difference, but difference going from, dragging something to cranking, it made literally the entire difference. I mean, if I would have never, I mean, sure, I probably have caught some, just because that big wave of fish moved in, but I don't
Yeah.
think I would have throttled them like I did.
Now, as a co-angler, if you were in my shoes, say come April 1st, I ended up getting a boater, because you always know Friday night, the day before, who you have, this, and this. So if I get in contact with him, I'm going to look to see where he is, placement wise, and say he didn't catch any fish the last time. All right. Would you say something to your boater? Hey, big, hey, this is, just in case if we're not getting anything, and would you say something? Hey, what about checking here out? Because this is where I ended up getting all the bites the last time. Would you say something to a boater or just keep your mouth shut?
The biggest thing, I've never had a co-angler do that, and I've never fished as a co-angler, so it's hard for me to go about that, just because I've never fished as a co-angler. But as a boater, um, every boater has a game plan, and if he didn't catch, especially at the, like, when you're at the Toyota Series and opens level and anything above that, and there's a co-anglers involved, it's definitely, the boater has a mindset and a game plan, and he's going to execute it. Even if he, did bad one day, he's in his mind, he's thinking of what he wants to do. And you can definitely kind of tell in the moment. And he might be a boater that would be cool with that. I can say that I probably wouldn't uh, go about any information from my co and use it. Um, because at the end of the day, for me, it's more or less, if I'm ready to make the Elite Series, I want to do it on my part, just so I know mentally that I'm good to go. But I just don't think that I would do it personally, but other people might. So I think it depends on the person and the situation, honestly. So
I just wanted to ask that question, like just in case if it ever popped up, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
Because you
absolutely.
never know. Like, if would a co-angler be wrong to say something like that to
No,
somebody?
no,
What I mean?
I don't think a coin would be wrong. I think a coin would be wrong to force something like that. But I think if you just bring it up, I mean, that'd be no issue. But I think once you bring it up at that point, that's if he wants to go that route, he can. But if not, then he can kind of just, he'll do what it was in his game plan, and he'll kind of move on from there. So I think that's the biggest thing, honestly.
Like in that tournament where I was like when I was just at Saturday, like I was seriously devastated.
Yeah,
Like when I found out and I talked to him that he was fishing deep, like I could not sleep. I could not sleep
yeah, no, I
Friday
understand.
night because that is not me. Like any lake around here, I
Yeah,
don't fish deep and I could not sleep. I'm getting up in the morning. I'm like, man, I came here. My family's going to watch
yeah,
this, and this, and I'm going to bomb this first event, and it's going to make me not even want to come back and do it again.
right.
And then I'm just like out there and I'm like, all right, I caught one on jerkbait. I don't ever
Yeah,
use a jerkbait. Like that's just not me. But I did catch one because he was doing it. So I said, you know what? I'm not catching anything on a crankbait around here. So let's just go ahead and try it. And I ended up getting one. But moving back out further and 4 hours of not catching anything, I'm like, man, I got to do something.
right.
So that's when I seen him getting frustrated because he's getting stuck in this grass.
Yep,
Because I seen him put weights on there too to try to get that jerk bait even deeper.
absolutely.
So I knew he's down there deep, and I could see back here where I was at because we were at 48, 50 feet of water,
Yep,
50, 60 at times. But when I was looking on his hummingbird, he was up there, in the 20s.
yeah.
So I was just like, all right, well, I got to figure this out. So that's when I just tied that on.
Yeah, no, I mean and like I said, it goes back to decision making. I mean, I will say, being a boater, I know what co-anglers go through when it is an offshore event. Just because my co-angler for Eufaula, I understood the shoes I was putting him in because I mean I fished. I like finding very very small spots, and the spot that I was fishing on Eufaula was not a big spot. I mean every single fish I caught was in a pretty small radius, and there was no way he could ever even throw in there. And he
I think
understood that, and he was okay with it, and he got it. He understood. And actually, there was one point once I started catching him every cast, he sat down and started filming. Actually, so I'll be posting some videos of some of the videos he took of me catching a double on a crankbait and me catching some good ones on crankbaits, just because he wanted to learn at that point.
your
And he
screen
got
froze on my end.
what's that?
I said your screen froze on my end for some reason. There
Oh,
it goes.
are we good? All right.
You just
Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely it gets pretty crazy. So I understand where they kind of are at. But at the same time, we're trying to get to the next level,
yeah.
and it's kind of one of those things that it's like, well, I mean, I got to cast in this certain direction. I mean, even sometimes you're fishing TVA lakes, anything on the Tennessee River or current oriented, you got to bring your bait through a certain way. So no matter where your boat's sitting, and when you caught those fish and found those fish, that's the same direction you got to bring that bait through. Sometimes to get a bite. So sometimes you got to line up on certain ways to get the fish to bite, and sometimes you got to line up, dead right behind the spot, so you can use your forward-facing sonar if there's wind to help you catch more fish. So I think that's a lot of times I can understand when co-anglers get because he even knew he had a buddy tell him that I'm a live scoper, and he literally right away in the morning he even told me, he's like, hey, he goes, I had a buddy tell me that you were a live scoper, and I understand what might happen today, and he goes, I'm just here to learn and have some fun. So, and we had a blast. I'm not gonna lie, we had a crazy good time. I told him that he can come up this summer and we can go out for some
How,
surf-based smallmouth.
how did he end up doing
He didn't catch fish just because I mean every spot I fished on Eufaula was a one cast spot.
Were you
You
on brush piles?
Yeah, so, I mean I had a lot of brush piles, and I had 2 or 3 hard spots, and that's pretty much what it was. And I think he understood kind of what was going on, but I mean, when it's on when it's situational like that, and it's a one cast spot, yeah, I feel
It's
pretty bad for some of the anglers. But at the end of the day, it is what it is, and you gotta keep moving. And we're all, every single guy in the Bassmaster EQ is trying to make the elites, and we all got a goal to do. So.
how long you think it's going to take for you to keep fishing with a co-angler until you can get off that, until you're on your own boat by
Uh,
yourself?
I mean, as far as like making the elites,
Yeah.
I mean, you're always planning on doing it. I mean, I'm planning on making
Mhm.
it this year. Just because if you're not, then you're not in it for the right reason. So every single guy in the EQ, Bassmaster EQ Opens, that fishes all nine, they are in it to make it, and they believe they can make it. And if you don't believe that you can make it, you should not be there, because that group of guys will stomp you down and hold you down until you cannot breathe, and they will continue to hold you down. So that group of guys is, you better have confidence and you better believe that you can make it, or you do not stand a chance. So my plan is to make it this year. I mean, especially I had a great start to the year, good points. And so we'll keep the season rolling, and hopefully we can continue on. So
Now, bait wise, I'll say going back to, as a recommendation from you to me, going back to Dale Hollow again.
yep,
Now, I don't know since you fished there. I mean, some of the spots you can see 20 feet down.
absolutely,
I mean, 15 feet down.
yep,
Like, it is clear.
yep,
Now, recommendation wise, what type of setups would you bring with you?
yep,
Say if you were in your shoes, but now you put yourself in my shoes as a co-angler, having a boater, the chances of him going out and
yep,
sniping, and I don't care. If people don't understand what the new term sniping is, it's live active target.
yep,
Just giving everyone a heads up,
yep,
because that's like, I've seen people ask questions, what is sniping? What is sniping? Well, that's using live active target, and
yep,
it's basically like a sniper rifle. You're just sitting there trying to pick that one fish off,
absolutely,
or one of those couple.
yep, absolutely,
So like, but what would you recommend going into a lake like that? We're gonna have the same type of weather as it was. It's not gonna warm
yep,
up. The water was 52.7,
okay,
so maybe it'll stay max
yep.
54 all the way down to 50.
I mean, I would probably start off, just if I'm going into it.
Yeah,
I would start off throwing jerk baits and stuff like that, kind of like what your boy was doing. I would be sniping like that. But if I was a co-angler, like you were talking about going into it, I would just be prepared to, learn to see what he's doing and where my surroundings are, and see what I can get on. If I know I'm in deep water, as far as the depth goes,
like a drop
I
shot,
I would probably be using a drop shot, but I would
shaky
probably be using something
head.
that suspend, because if you're in a deep water lake like Dale Hollow, they're shad and they are suspended anyways because of the clear water. So you would have probably your best shot at catching suspended fish. I know Dale Hollow has grass, so you could, I know the grass grows deep, so you can catch fish out of grass. It all depends on your surroundings. So drop shot, shaky head, just stuff like that. Chatterbait, heavy enough chatterbait, swim jig, just stuff like that to get to the grass. I mean, it would probably be a staple.
See, I don't own a 1 ounce chatterbait.
Okay.
I don't own them. I think 3/4 or half ounce is my largest one.
Yeah. Let me plug in here for a sec. We're running low. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, I think that's probably what I'd roll with. Just going off of, stuff I know of Dale Hollow. Like I said, I've never been there. But stuff I know about it, I would probably roll with some baits that I could catch them out of the top of the water column with. Even that time of year, I mean, they will suspend all time of year in that really clear water. So I think that's the
And
biggest
now,
conception.
crankbait
So
colors for this time of the year.
yep,
Just a shad and a crawl pattern,
yeah. I mean, it's
and
really
don't
hard to
get
beat.
too fancy.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't get too fancy in general with crankbaits. I think that's a bait that I think it depends on the hue at that point, just different hues, and kind of going off of, if it's a clear water, go more translucent depending on the light penetration and stuff like that. But honestly, I don't get too crazy with crankbait colors at all. I stick to just shad colors and crawfish patterns, or bluegill depending on what they're feeding on. But I don't like Dale Hollow. there are obviously a lot of shad, a lot of crawfish, bluegills. So the forage is really endless at that point when you talk about a lake like that. So yeah, just I mean, natural, very very natural colors for sure. Lots of translucent for sure as well.
Jim Barlow just mentioned that the co-anglers do well with an A rig as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you can throw it, I know with the opens you can not throw an A rig in the Bassmaster Opens, so that's something that
You
you
can.
know that it, right. So yeah, that's something that you can't throw in the opens, but I know on the Toyota Series you can. So I mean, yeah, that's a very good valid point. I would probably throw that
Do
around
you
as well.
throw them?
I throw
Do
them a
you
little bit
throw them?
at home. I don't really rely on them a lot. I like to tune in my fishing abilities with baits I can throw when I'm fishing the opens. So, as far as whatever bait, I feel like I'm gonna be throwing for the coming tournament, I'll try to kind of tweak it and tune it in. But I really I'll throw it in the fall for smallmouth because you really can't beat you can't beat an A rig sometimes in the fall for smallmouth. But I try not to go crazy with the A rig just because I know I can't really throw it at all in any event. So
All right. And that was basically a lot of the questions that I had for you because I just wanted to pick your brain a little bit and just let other people know about you too as well. Since I've been following you on Facebook and everything else.
yeah, no, absolutely not. I've been it's been a crazy career so far. Did great in the high school series. Had met a lot of friends. Most of my really close friends came from fishing high school. Networking that way. I mean, my travel partner, now I met through high school fishing. A lot of my buddies I have in the opens came through high school fishing. So I mean, it's a lot of the industry is just connections, and I've been lucky enough and blessed enough, and God put the right people in my life in a lot of circumstances. So it definitely it's worked out. It's worked out good. Who knows where the train's gonna go, but we're gonna keep riding it until we can. So
What's the largest bass you caught?
biggest,
Largemouth and smallmouth. I
the
gotta ask.
biggest, yeah, no, absolutely. This is some of the stuff I love talking about. Biggest one I've caught was a 943, I believe it was, on Chickamauga, and that was a largemouth, and that was this last June, and that was part of a 32-pound bag I caught. So that one's on. That is on my Facebook and Instagram. If you want to check that out. And then biggest smallmouth I've caught was 7.3. That is up here on the bay. A lot of last year there was a lot of 6.5s, so that was really fun. And then biggest spotted bass is in that 4.5 range. I've caught some big ones on the Coosa River down on Mitchell Lake. Mitchell Lake is one of my favorite lakes to fish down south, and Hartwell as well. Hartwell is obviously an incredible body of water. So yeah,
Now,
no,
since you fish, you follow. All
yep,
right. Now, I think that might be coming up. As long as I fish the rest of this season, I would get a chance to go fish there.
right on.
But it's going to be in October.
Okay, yep.
So the fish they're going to see every single bait there is in a book by that time.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So what would you recommend in October, which is one of the toughest times of the year to fish?
Yep.
What would you recommend?
Honestly, uh, I mean, there is a lot of shad in that lake. I will say after fishing some offshore spots, mostly obviously during that tournament, there is a lot of shad in that lake. I mean, I don't think people realize how much shad is in that lake. It's actually impressive for not having grass, the amount of shad in that lake. So they're going to be in the backs of pockets, like a normal fall time, transition would be. So I think looking towards that back of the pockets stuff would be a pretty big player. Throwing top water in the backs of pockets, just fish chasing the bait fish and moving with the bait fish towards the backs of the pockets. Because there's some
What
pretty
would
big
you
creeks in that lake. So
what would you say about a weightless fluke?
yeah, no, I mean that'd be a dynamite bait. That a spook, anything, especially since you guys can throw A rigs on the Toyota Series. An A rig would be great along bluff walls or something like that with the shad pushing up. That would be a great bite. A jerk bait, obviously for sure. Just stuff like that. But I'm sure that time of year they'll be bait fish oriented. If not, I'm sure some fish will still be offshore on the brush. I'm sure those fish I am very positive those fish live on that stuff all year long. Just seeing what I saw, those fish live on that brush a long time. So they really don't want to move very far. From what I've seen, they don't want to move very far at all.
And just to add to you guys, yes, I can see the comments. I just been letting him talk, like I haven't responded to any.
Yeah.
Just going back when we were talking about sniping and all that
Yep.
stuff, my buddy Daniel doesn't do too well. He has the Garmin,
Yep.
and he has it, but he hasn't caught any fish on it, like trying to snipe them
Yeah.
yet lately. So he's been struggling a little bit.
No, for sure. I
Jim
mean,
Barlow.
honestly, the best tip I can give for forward facing sonar is I have the Lowrance, but understanding the difference between the species, I will say, is probably the number one biggest thing that you should learn, because sometimes, I'll give you a prime example. Lake Eufaula has a lot of crappie in it, and bluegill as well in the brush. And I was able to understand what was bass in the brush and what was crappie in the brush. And even idling over it, once I saw the brush pile on my side scan, if it was deep enough, I don't like to idle over the top of it. If it's shallow, if it's like 15 or less, I don't like to idle over the top of it. But if it was deep enough, I would spin around and idle over the top, and you could tell kind of what they were. And then I would set up on a certain spot, see them with the active target. And if you could tell, once you could tell, what they were, you could fish for them. If you could tell that they were crappie on the forward-facing sonar, I would just pull my trolling motor and leave. Unless I
Now, are you able?
thicker dots.
Now, are you able to tell that they're crappie by the way they're setting up on that brush pile?
Uh, yeah, that and the return. So like depending on the brightness of the return.
Brightness of the yellow. All
Yeah, so like I have mine set on blue.
right.
That's just I absolutely love the blue color palette with Lowrance. I use that on my side scan, down scan, and active target. I think that is the best color palette they own and have. So that's what I roll with. From what I've seen, that is by far the best. I mean, I'll give you a prime example. In Sturgeon Bay, I was fishing a spot that's like 40 foot,
All
and I
right.
could see the bass dotted up on the bottom in 40 feet, but they were tight to the bottom. I mean, you would catch them and they would have sores on the bottom from sitting on the bottom so tight.
Wow.
But you could still see them in 40 foot dotted up on the bottom. So I mean, it's a really good color palette. I know Garmin has a blue one, I believe, as well. So blue is a very good color palette.
I haven't tried that one
Yeah.
yet on my live active.
Yep.
I haven't tried that one yet.
It's a really good
Um,
palette.
I'm just trying to also look at these comments.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys for actually stopping in today. Dale's in here. Thunder Rocket Lures. I don't know if you ever heard about the Thunder Rocket Lures.
I don't.
Speaking about, since he just popped in here, you have to go ahead and check that lure
Okay.
out. He has it on an A rig and a spinnerbait.
Okay.
Um, I don't know how to explain it. It's this little plastic piece
Yeah.
that has these two little balls in it, like these little beads in it, and it just makes some noise that's on a spinnerbait. It's actually really interesting.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. No,
And
I mean, anything that's different works really good. I mean, I play around with I will sit in the boat and I will play around with a lot of very small stuff, and I'll kind of just mess around with small stuff, and you would be shocked at the difference it makes messing around with really small baits and really small tweaks and stuff like that. It's pretty impressive.
now, do you have a preference
Yep.
in say units? Humminbird. Well, I already heard you say Lowrance. Now, do you
Yeah.
have a preference, or do you run multiple ones because of the different map
Yeah.
schemes and map cards that some might have over others?
So I run strictly Lowrance. I don't have a deal with Lowrance, but in my opinion, from what I've seen, day in, day out, I think for me right now, that's just my best, what I work best with.
Okay.
And I've been in the boat with all three brands, three major brands at least. So, I mean, I feel the most comfortable with Lowrance. Their side scan is great. I mark a lot of waypoints since I'm an offshore fisherman. So the waypoint management is the best waypoint management on the market by far. No question about it. I mean, at Eufaula, I was marking the brush with the tree icon, And if there was no fish in the brush, I would leave it the green tree. And if there's fish in the brush and if I wouldn't catch any off it, I would mark it blue. So that way I knew in the tournament I could come back if I needed that spot. And if it was a blue brush pile, there was fish in it. I just couldn't get him to bite at the time. So
Thunder Rocket Lures just commented that he grew up fishing the same home water as you.
yeah, no,
His
Shauna
first
Shauna
tournament
Lake
as a
is
kid.
awesome. I will say Shauna Lake. It's a really fun lake to fish as soon as ice gets off. It gets less fun to fish for me at least as the year goes on, just with all the weeds and stuff. At that point I moved to Sturgeon Bay, but I will say Shauna Lake, and it used to be better than it is now. We had a situation that they sprayed the grass and killed a lot of fish off, and it was a sad deal there, but no, I mean it's a fun lake to fish if you like grass for sure. And yeah, it is frog heaven. Yes, it is frog heaven. It is flipping heaven. If you love fishing docks, it is that. It's a cool body of water for sure, but the spring out there is pretty hard to beat.
I just want to go over. If you guys have any questions, you guys can put it in the comments because both of us can see them. I guess Daniel put, "Have you used a bait pop yet? And what is your opinion?"
I have not used bait pop. I believe my buddy did give me some. If it's what I'm thinking of. And what it is you put it on your bait, and it's supposed to make it pop more, and so you can see it better on forward-facing sonar. I haven't used it yet. My buddy did give me some, but I haven't used it yet. My guess is I will probably be using it. I'll try it at Toledo Bend for sure, because that's probably going to be an offshore event. At least for me, I'm going to try to fish offshore on every body of water. I think that's another thing that a lot of guys miscue is that you have to fish whatever the pattern is. You can still do what you want, like it's the seasonal patterns you have to follow, but you can still do what you want and what you have confidence in. So
How deep have you caught fish on the bay?
yeah, no, I mean I've caught fish out to 40, 50. They get deep out there. Some of the deepest fish I've seen was like 55, 60. They get deep, and once they get that deep, it's hard to keep them alive during a tournament, but they get deep, really deep. So yeah, I get real deep.
All right. Now I know you said that you're strictly Lowrance.
Yep.
Now, did you ever put a Lowrance? Did you like? Were you in boats where the guy had the Lowrance and the Hummingbird at the same exact time?
I never was in a boat with someone that had that. I've had, like I said, I've had buddies that have Hummingbird, so I know how good the Lake Master mapping is. I just haven't gone that route yet. I run 4 units on my boat, all Lowrances. I have an HGS 12 live dedicated strictly for the active target up front, and then a 9 above it for GPS and sonar, and then two HGS 12s at the console. And that's just kind of what I like. That's the setup I've liked. It's simple, it's easy to use, but I'm sure eventually I'll start going off into running Hummingbird for Lake Master and stuff like that, and Humber for 360. I haven't really messed around with 360 a bunch, and I know a lot of guys that fish offshore do. I just, as of now, I haven't seen enough positive results off it on my end. Because I had it for a little bit. I do so much idling around that I see everything that I know about on my side scan, and then I mark it out good enough to the point where I really don't need it on my side because now I see it with the active target. So for me, it's not a necessary thing right now, but it probably will be eventually.
I also have one more question,
Yeah.
quick, before we go.
No, absolutely. No,
Now,
keep them coming. Sure.
as a boat, so say for instance, if this year pans out well
Yeah,
for me, and I do well,
absolutely.
all right. I only can go to a certain size boat because of the garage I
Yeah.
have here. So the max boat I can go is like I can put a 19-footer in there, but I would say normal 18-foot boat, like because they always run
Yeah.
18.6, 18.5. Now on that end, now what boat would you recommend? Because I want to go new,
Mm.
but I don't want to go like break the bank where I'm paying, a truck
Yeah.
payment on like on a boat. What would you
Yeah, I
recommend?
know. I know. Some of the Ranger smaller boats are really good built wise, and I think you would be for to have a smaller boat, a Ranger probably would be a good route to go, because the issue with small boats, especially when you get big water, and if you really start traveling, a lot of lakes get big and they get big quick. And if you have a small boat, you don't want to be limited to certain areas. You want to be able to still unlock some areas you found in practice if the waves get big. So, having a boat that takes rough water good and has the right hull design at that point would be important. So I'd probably check out some of the Ranger ones, because I know they do make some of the smaller fiberglass stuff. But I think for me at least, if I had to get a small boat, I would look at a boat company that takes the waves the best, and Ranger takes waves extremely well.
Now,
So
what do you think about a Z18 Pro?
I've never been in any. I've been in one Nitro, and it was a 21 foot. So I wouldn't be able to know how they take rough water. I know the way the Rangers hull designs are they take rough water extremely well.
Mhm.
And if I had to get a small boat, I would still want to be able to unlock some stuff I found in practice if it blows.
All right.
That's the
Well,
big
I
thing.
appreciate your time.
Yeah,
Does
no,
anyone else
absolutely.
here in the stream have any questions for him by any chance?
Yeah, no, I mean it's been a good time. No, it's been a good run so far. We're gonna keep it going, and we'll see what happens. I think it should be a good year. The schedule sets up great for me. Had a blast at Eufaula, and I think it should be a good season. I'm excited. So the next one's at Toledo. If everyone will follow along there, that's gonna be a very very heavyweight event. There's gonna be some giants caught at Toledo. That like is
I have a feeling they will.
it's on the upswing. Put it that way. I know there's some years that Toledo wasn't as good as it used to be, and everyone was kind of panicking about it. But that that lake has some big fish in it. I mean, some really big fish. I mean, actually, the lake record was just caught there. So I no, I mean, I think everything we talked about was awesome. The biggest thing that we talked about, I think, and the most important thing was the decision making part. Just going off of my event at Eufaula really kind of put an emphasis on how important decision making is. So
Now, I also want to go to people because a lot of people forget about things, like they're all honed in on, I got this great reel, I got this, like when the SLX DC came out, I was one of those people too. All right, this is the new Bigum thing, blah, blah, blah.
mhm.
But how much of a difference it is to have the right rod for the right situation.
It's everything. I mean, it's having a reliable rod. I think is also a huge deal. And you talk to a lot of Kistler owners, and they don't have issues breaking rods. And
I love
especially
mine.
yeah, I mean, especially being on the road too. I think it's even more of an importance that you don't have to worry about the rod breaking or having a chip guide. I mean, sure, everyone chips guides. If you're rough on your stuff, but uh, the confidence, having confidence in your equipment is everything, and having confidence in your rod is a lot more, even more important, really. Uh, and knowing that when you're going to be on the road for a month and you can't get your hands on stuff quickly, it makes it even more important. So having something you can trust is good.
Now, just going by, a lot of people know what I actually fish, and they know that I have my own promo code with Kistler
Yep.
and everything else. But you're further along in the tournament scene than I could ever
Oh yeah.
be. All right. So explain to them why a Kistler rod and the sensitivity and the blanks and the whole 9 yards. Like why specifically that you not like the whole Christian,
Yeah.
that's huge too with me
Yeah.
as well, because they're Christian owned and everything else.
Definitely.
But why specifically that type rod?
I think if I had to give one good reason for a Kistler, I would say the biggest reason is the attention to detail when it gets to the factory, which is in America. So once the rods, they're Torre blanks. Once the rods arrive at the Kistler factory in Magnolia, Texas, they arrive with it is just the blank. There's nothing there. but the blank. And they make them in Texas. And before they start making them, though, they test them. They test every single blank for imperfections. And there are videos on top of videos of Trey Kistler, the owner, working with the rods as soon as they get in, so that way they don't snap on you when you're on the water, but they snap at the factory if there's an imperfection. So every rod that they actually make has been tested, so you don't have to worry about it breaking if there was imperfections. Now, if you go out there and start slamming rods and rod lockers and stuff like that, yeah, they're gonna break if you're that rough on your stuff. But I mean, knowing that as soon as the rod is made in America, it's been tested before there's been any guides put on it, any reel seat, any cork, anything at all. That rod has been tested and bent and pressure tested every single blank before it's made. I think that is the reason to shop Kistler, and it's the attention to detail part.
Now I have another thing
Yep.
because they don't know that that we actually spoke the other night a little bit before.
Yep.
I have feeling reel. I always tell you guys that I use my feeling reel rod for my chatterbait and my swim jig.
Yep.
Well, I just found out the other night that that is his go-to crankbait rod.
Yes.
And explain to these people like a feeling reel rod is, it's you have your glass
Yep.
and it's like a mixture
Yep.
rod, and the way that it, like, I've showed guys on my stream where I could almost wrap it around my head,
Yep.
like that's how it bends. Like literally I sat here in my boat and I wrapped it to like here,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's unbelievable. But for certain cranking in certain situations, like why do you use that rod for cranking versus your normal KLX? Or
Yep.
I'm just naming off rods, guys. Like I would say a KLX is their medium
It's a moderate
price
action.
range rod.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's a medium price points, and it's a moderate action. So no, so that's a really good question. And I think the biggest thing is when you're throwing crankbaits, I will not throw a crankbait unless it is on glass. That rod needs to have some glass on it, or I will not throw a crankbait on it. Period. End of story. No questions asked. If there is not glass in that rod, I will not throw a crankbait on
But
it.
why?
So the reason behind that is glass is it's very forgiving. So when you say, you can bend it, pretty much wrap it around, your shoulders and stuff, the reason being is it's so flexible and it's very forgiving, as far as, so when you're cranking down there, I'll give you a prime example. So when I was on Eufaula, when I was catching them every throw for an hour and a half, I would fire out, I'd reel it down quick once I started hitting the bottom. The issue was I had a DT14. That was the deepest crankbait I had in my box. I left all the rest of them at the house because I didn't think I was gonna have to throw it. So I was trying to get a DT14 down to 16 feet of water. And if you know anything about DT14, a DT14, the DT stands for dives to.
Yep.
So you had to launch that thing as far as you could with that Kistler Series 1 reel. You had to launch it as far as you possibly could. And then you had to stick your rod in the water to even get it down there. So once I launched the bait as far as I could, I would have to kneel down on the front of my deck, stick my rod in the water to get it down. Every single throw I had to do that. And when your rod's in the water, there's already pressure on it when you have to swing. And you can still feel a lot because it's a very sensitive rod, but you can't feel as much as obviously if it was out of the water. So uh, it's when your bait's going through the bottom, right? You're feeling bottom, and one gets it. Instead of it immediately feeling backbone, glass is a lot more whippy, so it gives them just a little longer to get it. I mean, I'll even give an example when you're not in, your rod's not in the water, right? And once you sling the bait out, it just gives the fish a little longer to get the bait better, and that's everything when you're throwing treble hooks, especially when the fish jumps. I got the videos going to be coming out soon of all the videos of my co-angler clicking me while I was catching him every throw, because he sat down and just wanted to film it, which I was fine with, and it was a very special moment. And you'll see in
That
the video when the fish jumps, the feeling reel at the tip, because it's a glass tip and then it goes to a carbon and graphite blank. So at the tip, you'll see the tip just start whipping like crazy when the fish jumps, and that's because it's very flexible. It's completely flexible. Versus, your graphite and carbon blanks, they don't have that reaction time.
Right.
The glass reaction time is immediate. There's no delay. There's zero delay in glass. So as soon as it feels anything, it adjusts as it goes. So that's why I will never ever ever throw a crankbait on anything without a little glass in it. And the feeling
Now,
reel
do you,
definitely
now,
goes
do you
with
throw your lipless on that same stuff?
it. Yep. Actually,
And
yep.
anything with the treble hook?
Anything with treble except obviously like top water. I'll throw
Yeah.
top water on just moderate action rod. I will not throw a crankbait unless it is moderate action or any treble hook bait, because otherwise you'll start pulling hooks. But a top water I'll throw on moderate action without glass, no glass in it. But anything with crankbaits, I will always have glass in it just because of how it responds. So if let's say I'm cranking down on a hard spot and I hit a rock or a shell or a big shell or something, and once I hit that shell, when the crankbait bounces over it, and it allows me to continue to feel what's going on with the bait, and it gives you more sensitivity in that realm, but it also lets you know what's going on the bottom, and it lets you not lose as many fish at the end of the day, because that's what we're all here for. We're here to catch fish and here to do good in tournaments, and having a rod with glass cranking is a must for that reason, just because you lose way less fish just because it's bends easier. So
I'm gonna have to try that out because I'll probably take one of my reels off and just try to throw my one of the ones that I use
yeah,
for cranking and everything else. Now, what size line? Now, do you use 12? Do you
yeah,
use heavy? Do you use 10? Like, I'm a 12-pound
yep.
guy.
I use strictly 12. I will go up to 15. The only time I'll go up to 15 is if I'm in some like real nasty stuff.
Shallow water.
Or yes, or shallow water cranking like a square bill. Or if I'm throwing like a 10XD, like a big plug, like the biggest you can get. Like a DT20, I'll throw on 12 just fine, no issue, unless I'm around really bad stuff. But if I'm throwing that 10XD, I will have that on 15 because that is a big plug, and that thing is heavy, and there's a lot of pressure when you're bringing it through the water. So
I also got one other question.
yeah, no, keep
Do
going,
you
man.
do
We're
you
good.
do you back your reels with braid, or do you back any of your reels with braid or monofilament by any chance?
Yep, so I do not back my crankbait reels. So like my longer casting, like a square bill, I'll put backing on, and I'll just use mono, the cheapest mono I can find.
Okay.
Is sure it's terrible memory, but who cares? Because it's never gonna see the light of day. So I'll back every single reel with mono, the cheapest mono I can find from Walmart, whatever. It's never gonna see any action. So I'll back everything with mono except my cranking setups, like an actual like offshore cranking situation. So when I have
Now,
to
like
bomb
that.
it, when I have to really whip it as far as I can to get that crankbait down, I don't have to be worried about that not ever even showing. So
Okay.
so yeah, anything I would say that you're casting and trying to get your bait down, probably from a DT10 on and deeper, I never use backing for that.
I was just curious because a lot of people always ask about that. They ask,
Yep.
oh, do you back with braid, like junk braid from Walmart, like 50-pound braid, or do you do this
Yep.
or that? And that's why I was just curious because I got braid on the majority of mine.
Yeah. So I think, and honestly, this is something I learned, and kind of just a light bulb moment, really. When I was at ICAST with Kistler, we were talking to Trey and stuff, and I had a moment to kind of talk to him about, the reels and stuff, and he was explaining to me, and this made complete sense, and it'll kind of a light bulb moment will go off for you too, like it did me at ICAST. And he said the reason that you sometimes should use a smaller spool if you don't need all the line is you'll cast farther. So the reel, if there's less line on it, there's that means less weight. So the spool doesn't have to work as hard to spin the actual gears and stuff and everything inside. It doesn't have to work as hard because there's not as much weight. so it spins freer,
I
which
never thought
automatically makes
about
it go
that.
farther. Right? No, I never
I
thought
never
about
thought.
that. And as soon as he said that, because Kistler does offer
Small
replacement spools for,
schools.
yeah,
Yeah.
small spools for the Series 1 and 2 and the Chromium. I never thought about that before he said that. And as soon as he said that, I'm like, that makes complete sense. Why, like, you kind of know about like the bait fish finesse and stuff like that. Some of the guys using bait casters for really light finesse
Like I
application.
do.
Yeah,
I do. I
absolutely.
love it. I love my my SVTWS 103. I
Yeah,
love it. I can throw a 1/8 ounce, a 1/16 ounce, and I can still use a bait caster,
absolutely.
which is nice.
Yeah,
And
no, I
that's what
mean,
I was using in the
yeah,
tournament.
no, I mean, a situation like that is perfect. I mean, and so really, when he said that, it was pretty much a light bulb moment. I'm like, that makes complete sense, and that's just another reason why he is as impressive as he is. I mean, the stuff that guy knows is incredible. I mean, he knows his stuff when it comes to rods. It's pretty incredible to sit in a room with him and him share thoughts and ideas and the reason behind some of the stuff he does. It's impressive.
Now, do you also see a difference if you don't have your line totally filled up on your reel?
Yeah,
Do
so
you
like
see like a difference in casting versus how fast you're reeling now because there's less?
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely it makes a difference. I always, unless it's like I know I'm not at a tournament, I'm just fun fishing around the house. I always have them filled to the absolute brim with line because it makes it. And see, this is conflicting, but it makes it throw better when you have more line on it with a bigger, deeper spool because it's not having to draw down so far. Is when you
Yeah.
have less line on the spool with a deep spool, it has to draw down closer to the actual spool itself.
Mhm.
Versus if you have a small spool, it's closer to that line exit, and it just makes it easier for the line to come off when you have your line level with the actual spooling itself. So in a situation like that, if you have deep spool, fill it to the brim. But if just to make it cast farther, but with a small spool, it'll probably cast farther because it's less weight on the spool, but still have that maxed out to the top as well. So.
So would you recommend people to have two different sets of spools, like a deep and a shallow spool for
Um,
that exact same reel?
No, I wouldn't just because um, you know, if you're throwing a crankbait, you're trying to get a crankbait down as far and deep as you can.
You're gonna need
You need a big spool. You need a monster spool to get that thing out as far and down as far as you can. So for instance like that, you're gonna need a big spool. But if you're flipping or something like that, where you are only using, a couple, feet, you're not talking even,
spool.
very far at all. You're talking just feet. So in a situation like that, absolutely use a small spool. There's no reason not to at that point because then you don't even need backing. So in a situation like that, have a small spool. There is no issue to use. I just haven't invested in it yet. I just haven't got any. But I at that point, yeah, I mean, a small spool would be the absolutely right reason.
Now, here's another thing that a lot of people
Yeah.
do. Do you buy your reels and get specific bearings and replace those bearings, or do you just keep the bearings that are in your rule and in your reel that you get?
So I just keep the bearings with what I get. I don't go too crazy with that. Now, when you start talking spinning, I'm very picky with spinning just because of the light line up here and stuff. But I the bearings in the Kistler series 1 and 2, I don't have any familiarity with the series 2, but I know I felt the Chromium, the new one that they just released at ICAST, and they did bump up the bearings in that. They went pretty high end with the bearings on that one. And the Series 1 I have all Series 1, and those are just fine. I can launch a crankbait pretty far. Once you get it set up right, you can sling baits pretty far with them.
Trey hurt my feelings when he brought that reel out. There's no
Yeah,
left-handed ones.
yeah. he didn't make a left-handed catch.
Everybody
And, yeah,
in that team in chat, I even commented
yep,
in there, man. I was hurt. I'm like, how are you going to bring out a reel and you do not have left-handed ones? Even though I'm
right,
right-handed, like I switched. I was like one of those people that always reeled with my right,
yep,
but I got tired of switching hands. So now I can just zip it like this and just right down the crank, and like I don't need
right,
to worry about it. But that reel came out and there was no left-handed ones, and I'm like, are you serious?
right. Yeah, no, he did. I think his thought process on that, I don't want to speak
He
for
just
him,
wanted
but
to get it out.
yeah,
He just wanted to get that reel
he
out.
wanted to get it out, and I'm glad he did because it's a it's the bearings inside of it and the things that they did inside of it, and they worked with a local guy down there. It's pretty impressive some of the stuff they put into it. So yeah, I would check it out for sure. It's foam handles, which is nice, and it's the construction of the inside is pretty impressive. So
I've seen it when they broke it down before they released it, but when they released it, I'm just looking. I'm like, there's no left-handed ones.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like,
No, I
what?
think yeah, he want to get it out for sure, and I don't know the exact reason behind why there's no left hands, but because I throw right, I just never have gotten myself to throw with the left hand one and reel and set the hook with my right hand. I don't know. For me, I've never got myself to actually do it. It's one of those things that if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Well, yeah, like
So,
I'll always, throw my right hand, period, and
yep,
I'll even set the hook with my right,
yep,
like either way, like I always use my right hand, but it just eventually once I tried it, like it felt like
yep,
awkward, and then once I started getting used to it, because I bought the wrong reel by
okay,
accident, all right, because I seen it online, but I didn't look if it was
yep,
left or right, and it was left, and I bought it, and I got it. I'm like, yeah, I just spent like, I think it was like a lose Mach 1 or
okay,
what, like at the time. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I'm not sending this back in. I'm just gonna go out and use it. And then I just slowly, I'm like, all right, it's just so much quicker. Just boom and just
yep.
right here. Like, I ain't even doing anything.
Absolutely. No, I mean it definitely. I can see how it would be beneficial, especially flipping. I know Seth Fighter flips with that lefty just because as soon as you go into a mat or something, you
Yeah, do
instantly
you
see a
flip
reaction.
with your left hand then?
No,
Are you
yeah.
right-handed, left-handed?
So I flip. So normally, unless I have to flip pretty far, I've gotten used to and I've kind of learned how to flip with my left. And then I can just immediately engage. A lot of times it'll be one of the things that I'll do with my right hand just because I'm holding my phone with the other one, but like I'll do like a loop. I'll just kind of flip the bait up and flip it out with my left.
Yeah.
Or I'll just reel back and I'll use the momentum from swinging. So when it's swinging back, I'll use that momentum from swing back and just roll cast with my left hand so I don't have to take it off or anything. So I'll just, as soon as the bait's penduluming back when I'm reeling it in fast, I'll use that momentum and just shove it right back out. So that's kind of what I've just done and taught myself over the years because that it causes an issue, when you're flipping and if you're using like a ounce and a half,
That's
and that thing
heavy.
goes through the mat. Once it goes through the mat and it goes quickly, obviously, once it goes through there, she could be waiting right where you just flipped, and she could be taken off immediately. So if you're not ready and you have to switch hands, that you could lose that fish pretty easily. So that's kind of why I had to learn to flip with my left. And then once I flipped, I'll just obviously engage the reel with my right and fish normally. But that's why I haven't invested in left-handed reels, just because I taught myself how to use it with my left hand. So
Well, I appreciate your time that
yeah,
you spent with me tonight, man.
yeah, no, it's a good
Um,
time, and I love doing these things. So no, there was no issue at all.
does anybody in here have any questions for him by any
Yeah,
chance before we do get off here
yeah,
tonight? If anyone has any questions, just go ahead, just type it in the comment because we both
yeah,
can see them.
yeah. No, absolutely.
Now, I'd like to apologize. I wasn't able to get it on my YouTube
Yep.
channel because apparently you need to have a certain amount of followers on your YouTube channel so you can do the duel.
Right. Yep.
So,
That's good to know.
yeah, I didn't even know because I was like, all right, well, you have the YouTube and you have your phone, blah, 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 so we could do it that way. And then I'm just like wasted a half an hour's worth of time trying to figure
Right.
this out. And come to find out that I was like,
That's
great.
technology for you, man. Technology is it's good at times and it's not good at others. So no, technology is definitely a friend and a disadvantage sometimes.
But eventually, so I don't have to worry about this later on, I'll end up getting a setup upstairs and in our room and everything else.
Yeah.
So that way I can go ahead and just But yeah, you actually said that you're gonna start putting out content this year, correct?
Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna start working on content. I know YouTube's important. I know a lot of guys definitely like the YouTube route, but I just haven't got on it yet.
Um, Dale had a question for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see here. Let's see if I can get it up. Drop shot lengths, cold weather versus warm weather. So Dale, it's more or less just where the fish are positioned, honestly. So, I really don't let the water temp determine how long the leader is. I let the fish. So, just because it's cold water doesn't mean that they'll be higher or lower in the water column. It all depends on where the fish are sitting in the water column. I mean, sometimes, out in the bay, I'll use a pretty long leader. I don't want to go exactly how long, but I'll use pretty long. If it's a real calm day, and they're high in the water column, they'll get pretty high in the water column, and I'll adjust my leader because of it. But in the colder months, they'll suspend too. Down like a lake like Dale Hollow, or any clear highland reservoir, that's clear water, they'll suspend in cold water. So
Well,
I
with
let the
Dale,
determine.
I have fished with Dale. Dale does a lot of river
Yeah,
fishing, so that's the reason why he's asking because on a couple of my videos I had him out too as well when we go out to the Cumberland River.
yeah.
So we're fishing that. So I think that's the reason why he was going to because he does a
Sure.
lot of river
Yeah, no,
fishing.
I honestly, I let the fish determine. If the bait's low in the water and the fish are low, I'll use less of a leader. If they're high in the water column, I'll start bumping it up, all the way up to 2 feet. Sometimes you can get a pretty long leader going.
I guess Zach had a drop shot, deep water, best line setup, mono or
Yep.
braid,
Yep.
and weight.
Okay. Yes. No, for sure. So, I keep it really simple. As far as some of that goes, I use 8 pound braid. I know it's a little lighter than a lot of people use, but I'll use 8 pound braid nationwide. Doesn't matter. Florida, up north, doesn't matter. So I use 8 pound braid, and then I will run, depending on where I am, this is where it changes. If I'm up north, water's super clear, the fish get finicky. If there's a lot of boat pressure, I'll go all the way down to 6. I'll start at 8, up here, and then go down to 6. Now down south, I normally start at about 10, just because you're dealing with some bigger fish sometimes, and you're dealing with some more structure issues if you're in brush piles and stuff like that. I'll start with 10, and then at that point, if they're not biting 10, I'll go to 8 if I have to.
Still
And then as far as
with
weight,
8 pound
what's
braid,
that?
you will go with 8 pound braid and a 10 pound
Yep,
fluoro.
yeah.
You will
I
even
I,
go up higher.
I will. Never ever ever use anything more than 8 pound braid, and the only reason I do that is you would be shocked at the casting difference between 8 pound braid and
And
10
10.
pound. Yeah, you would be shocked. I mean, I can whip a drop shot and Ed rig a long ways in the difference there, and I think people just think that 10 pound braid is thin enough. I mean, I know guys up here use 5 pound. I mean, you think about it, you really don't break braided line. So why go heavy? I mean, the thinner diameter is better just because you can cast farther
See,
at the end of the
I
day.
have 10. I'm so used to 10 and
Yep.
running 10 and 8.
Yeah.
So that's why I was just curious how you went 8 and 10 the opposite direction. That's why that
Yeah.
just threw me the
Yep. I mean, if I'm in really thick stuff, like right now, on my spinning rods, I have 8 pound braid and I have 10 pound fluoro, just because I know I'm going to Toledo Bend and I just came back from Eufaula, both lakes. There's a lot of structure out deep that they can get wrapped up in, and I want a little bit heavier line. Plus, the water's not as clear, so I can get away with a heavier line. Up here, the water's so clear, you want to get as light as you absolutely can go, and I've seen it make a pretty big difference.
Now, Daniel also asked in narrow, fast flowing rivers, like we were just talking about, is the Cumberland River, would you fish offshore?
At that point, I think it all depends on offshore. If it's a wide river, if there's any points sticking out in it, if current oriented, I'll give you a prime example of Coosa River, right? So Coosa River, has different lakes throughout the Coosa River. And it's controlled by the Alabama Power, as far as how much current flows through them. but there's a lot of areas where it's pretty tight. And offshore at that point is, you're still within casting distance of the bank, but it's something sticking out that's a current break. So like there's a spot on Mitchell Lake that there's a little point that comes offshore, and they just sit, and depending on the day, and I've had them sit on both sides, they'll sit on the front side if the current's, moving, but if that current's like ripping, they'll sit on the back side and wait for, stuff to come over the top of them. So it
I
all
would say
depends.
it's probably about a little over 100 yards wide. I would say the
Okay.
river.
Yeah, no, you could. I mean, you could absolutely fish offshore. Like I said, offshore is obviously a relative term, but you could
Maybe 200
easily,
yards max.
yeah, no, you could easily fish, deeper. You don't have you're not limited to the bank when it comes to river, because those fish will position wherever. If there's bait fish in the system, and there's bait fish that washes by them, they will get deep and let the bait fish just come right over the top of them, and they'll ambush them and eat them. I mean, that's the prime example, like I said, on the Coosa. They'll get pretty deep on the Coosa once the current starts flowing, and it's the time of year. Once it's post spawn and the fish are done spawning, they'll start working out deep, and they'll get in the points and stuff. And as soon that is once that current starts rolling, if it's rolling really fast, they'll get behind it normally and kind of let the bait fish wash over the top. Plus, it's easier for them because at the end of the day, bass are somewhat lazy. So, they'll just sit in the back in the little eddies and stuff and wait for the current to wash bait fish over the top of it. And then if it's, the current's not crazy heavy, they'll sit, on the front side. So the bait fish will wash right to them. So either way, it's a win-win for them. So, but yeah, you can definitely fish deeper in river systems for sure.
All right. Does anyone else have any questions tonight for him by any
Yeah,
chance?
absolutely for sure. No, it's been a good time for sure.
I don't
It's
want
I love doing these for sure.
to just wait and see if anyone else just chimes in quick
Yeah.
because I don't want to hold you up too
Any,
long.
no, no, man, we're all good. I love doing these. I love talking fishing anyways. So this is not an issue at all doing these. So no, I'm glad you invited me on. It's been a good time for sure. And like I said, you can follow along. Anyone watching right now, you can follow along on my Facebook account, which is just Jacob Bigelow. You can shoot me a friend request and follow along there. As well as Instagram is Jacob Bigelow Fishing, and you can follow along there as well. I'll be posting some more, like I said, some of the videos from me follow that my co-angler took once we kind of got in the school. And it definitely it's gonna be pretty cool. Some of the videos he took was
I'm,
he
I'm all
got
waiting
the
to just
double.
see. I'm all waiting to see that double that you had, plus
Yeah,
cast after cast after cast.
yeah. I mean, he didn't get the casting, but
But
so
did you get the double?
yeah, he got the double. He got the double. It was
So what were the sizes on
uh,
that double?
it was a 4 and a 3.
And that was the DT14.
That was a DT14, and like I said, I have no idea which fish had it first, and then the other fish just decided he wanted to try to eat it out of the other one's mouth. So I have no clue which one was which. But I mean, I'll go into a little bit exactly what happened, but
Did
uh,
you see it on Live Scope happen?
I didn't see it on LiveScope happen, but what I saw on LiveScope was I've never seen this before. So it was just a little hard spot, and the fish were using it as almost a stop sign before they would go up and spawn. And uh, so I caught 16 pounds on it day one, and it
Mhm.
honestly, after practice, it wasn't really even a spot that I thought I could do. I knew I could catch fish off of, but I didn't know that I could do that. And so day one, I had 16 pounds completely off that spot, and then it kind of slowly progressed. Day two, I started there, nothing crazy. About halfway through the day, I went back there again and put a couple more fish in the boat, and then it was dead. Nothing was going on. You couldn't buy a bite if you wanted to. And
Wow.
I remembered earlier in the day, on day two, I was fishing a brush pile, and I had a 4 pounder follow my Carolina rig to the boat. And as I was like burning it back, and I could see them on the active target following along the bottom, and they were kind of chasing it, but they never would eat it. And I burned it back to the boat to fire in again, and the 4 pounder tried eating my Carolina rig bait at the boat. He literally swam to the surface and rolled on it at the surface. And
Wow.
so kind of like, and that was in 20 foot. He came from 20 foot to try to get that. So he came a long
That
ways.
high?
He came that high to try to get that bait.
That's a
And
lot of energy for a
yeah,
bass.
especially that time of year or something. So that kind of clicked. So I knew that they probably didn't want anything dragging at that point just because, so I had that in the back of my head. So when I rolled up to this hard spot again, I threw the Carolina rig out like I caught the fish on, day
Mhm.
one. Caught one more, and then it was done. It was dead. So I'm like, all right, let's tie in a DT 14 because that was the deepest one I had to get down to 16. And just the same exact color that I was throwing the DT 10 on in practice. I had some shallower hard spots that I was throwing the DT 10 on that I caught some fish on. So I did the same color, threw it out there first cast, caught a 3-pounder. And I was like, okay. I'm like, I get it. And there's fish there. I could see them. They're sitting there. And I caught probably 20 fish in 45 minutes. And I busted up the school pretty good. Smallest fish I caught off that spot was like 3 pounds.
Wow.
So I had like 17 pounds in the boat in about 45 minutes. And after I busted them up, they got real scattered out. I told my co-angler, I said, hey, we're going to leave. I said, we don't have much time left, but I said, we're going to leave and we're going to come back in a half an hour and let the school kind of get back together. So that way I could give them some time to, join back up and get the party
Yeah.
started again. So, I let them school back up and rolled back in there a half an hour later. And there was an entire new wave of fish that rolled in. And they were ice cold. And I could see them on my forward-facing sonar. And I caught them every cast for an hour and a half, except one cast, I lost a fish halfway back to the boat. Otherwise, I caught a
Wow.
fish every single cast for an hour and a half. It was insane.
That's
But the
something you had
craziest part
to get
was,
on camera.
yeah, I
This is
know, and
one
I
of those
know.
moments.
Yeah, and it really kills me too because my title partner or title sponsor on my custom tackle, Taylor Watkins, the owner of it, when we were talking, he's like, "Gosh," he goes, "You really should have had a GoPro for that one." I said, "I know, because it would have been really
You
nice to have that on film."
don't have one
No,
right up in the front?
I got a small one and an older one, but it's just I haven't thought of really doing anything with it. But it was pretty special. But I could literally watch the fish as I was catching them. They were coming to the spot. I was watching the fish swim up on top of this hard spot as I was catching more. So I was literally just it was a never-ending wave of fish. They never stopped swimming, and they kept
What's one
swimming.
left? Another one took its spot.
Yeah, as soon as I caught one, another one rolled in, and another one rolled in, another one rolled in.
That's
It was a
amazing.
never-ending wave of fish. I've never seen anything like that, and they were ice cold. I mean, they were like, I've never felt fish that time of year down south as cold as they were. So I knew as soon as I caught the first one out of the school when I came back and he was ice cold, I'm like, this school is fresh. They are hungry. They're ready to bite. And they were. And the only reason I left is because I had to go back to weigh in. And the only reason I stopped catching them is because I left. So,
Now, is that the
and it was all
second
based.
day?
Yeah, that was the second day. Yep, that was the second day, and it the craziest part was they were all big. I didn't catch a single fish in that hour and a half time period that was under 3 pounds. Every single one was over three.
That is so rare.
It was incredible. But the even crazier part was, and I've never even heard this happen. When I got to the check line after the tournament, we were all waiting for our checks, and some of my buddies were talking and stuff, and every single person at 1:30 in the afternoon had the same exact thing happen to them. The same
Oh,
thing
they all just rolled in from deep water all at
at
one time in
1:30.
the day.
At 1:30, every single person said the same thing. My buddy Tyler Levitt said the same exact thing. He had a school come in on him at 1:30. John Garrick had 27 pounds around that 1:30 time period, I was told. So
Wow.
every single person that I talked to said that exact same thing at 1:30. All of a sudden, that they just all showed up. So I've never had that happen where the entire lake just bust wide open at 1:30 or at any time period. So I don't know what made them do that and why they didn't do it earlier. but the entire leg exploded at 130. So I'm very happy that I went back to that that hard spot, because it got very, very special. And I knew I could see big ones in there, but they were pretty hesitant to do anything. I I mean, I had 2/4 out of that spot, and the rest were just. I mean, I was throwing three and a quarters back like nothing, just because I was trying to get in there as quick as possible. About halfway through the hour and a half time period, I broke one of my back treble hooks off, trying to get it out of a fish. So I only had 2 pins on the back, and I kept throwing it because I in my mind, I didn't have time to put another treble on. So I kept zinging it out because I knew how special it was, and I saw how many were kept swimming up on top of this hard spot over and over and over again, and I knew I something special was happening. So I had zero time to I had zero time to put another treble hook on. So we were slinging it out with two pins on the back treble.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Now Dale had one more for you that he put. How long do you make your leader of fluoro from your braid on your spinning setups? I go about 30 feet. When it gets below 20 feet, I tie on a new
Nope,
leader.
that is perfect. So normally what I'll do, and this is kind of like I said, depending on the color of water. But normally I'll go, I'll normally do 3 to 4 wraps in the spool.
All
If
right.
it's standard watercolor. But if it's really clear, I'll do like 6 or 7 wraps in the spool. I don't know exactly what foot that is, but that's just kind of how I roll with it. And then that's kind of just how I set it up. I always an FG nut though. That is one thing. I was against
Somebody.
it. I was against it for a long time. Trust me, I'm like, this knot takes forever to tie, and I
It,
don't know if there's a big deal, but it works. It works really good, and you will see a difference if you start tying the FG knot for sure.
now, do you ever have your FG not like? Do you cast far enough to where you hear it clanking the whole way coming out?
So I mean, you definitely you cast your fluorocarbon off, and you get to your braid on every
Yeah.
cast, but you can barely hear that thing coming through the guides. I mean, I used to tie the knot I always used to tie was a uni to uni. That's what I rolled with from the beginning because that's all I knew. And then once
Yeah.
FG came out, I tried it. I just couldn't understand it because a lot of guys, all the videos I saw, they just had the line in their mouth
I,
for
I did too. That's how I tie mine.
no,
I'll wrap mine over and hold it in your mouth.
no. So what to do, and this is kind of just how I learned it. The best thing to do is make a loop and put it onto
Your
your
pinky.
reel handle. So then
Oh.
all of the braid is completely tight using the rod, and then you have complete use of 2 hands to full use with no braid attached to it to actually do the knot itself. So once I attach the braid to the reel handle, I'll kind of crank the reel handle down and put some bend on the rod to put that tightness on the braid, and then I'll just start tying my FG. And I can tell you it has made the biggest difference because you can use both of your hands.
Oh, was it that much tighter?
Right, right. Plus it adds tension, and it's tension that you can't put that much tension on your hand because braid will just slice through it. So
I never thought about that.
it's
Never thought. I was holding my
no,
mouth. And then I'll just start wrapping, bring it back around, wrap it here. And I'll always use it in my mouth.
yeah. Trust me, it makes life 1,000 times easier when you tie. It's just a standard loop knot, and just put it over your reel handle, cinch it down, put a little bend in your rod so there's tension on the braid, like there has to be for the FG knot,
Yeah.
and then just start wrapping. Just hold it between the rod between your legs, and just start wrapping with your hands, and you have all the
Oh,
use
I
of
never thought about that.
yep, you have all the use of
Wow.
your hands.
Use that shit, but I have experience with the SC knot, and then he likes that too. It's easier and faster, he says, to tie.
Yeah, I mean, FG knot takes a while, but once you get good with it, you can do it really fast. But it does take a little while at first, for sure. But once you get used to it, it's something that you have to get used to. But once you get used to it, there's no going back. You'll tie another knot, and then it'll break or something will happen, or it'll get caught in the guides going through, and then you're like, I need to go back to that FG. So I mean, it's the deal.
See, I'm probably gonna have to do that now because I always struggle when it gets really windy out there, and I'm
Yep.
trying to do that knot. My line's all over the place, and I'm like, oh, come on.
Yeah, no, trust me, that is the best thing to do as far as tying an FG is just do a overhand loop knot and put it on your reel handle and then spin it down to tighten it and put a little bend in your rod and it'll tighten it for you and that way you have no worry about the braid staying tight because you're not doing anything. It's going to stay tight for you and you can completely focus on tying the knot and not have to worry about the tightness of your braid.
Dang.
Yeah.
Well, alrighty,
Yeah.
guys. I thank you guys for stopping in and in this chat here, and also watching the live stream. I apologize again. I tried to get it on YouTube, so there's going to be like probably a lot of people that didn't get to see this video, but I'm going to go ahead and see if I can upload it to YouTube just so people that didn't get to see it too as well. But I also appreciate your time that you gave
Absolutely.
me tonight too as
No,
well.
it was a good time. I love doing these, and we'll have to get on again soon.
I will let you know how it goes after April 1st. Hopefully, it just was a fluke.
Absolutely. No, it should be. You should have a good time.
I'm like hoping, man. I'm just hoping God is in my corner again. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like it was
Whenever
just
you're
one of
trying,
those
that's all you can do
times
is pray.
where I was just out there and it was just like was just catching, and then I was able to call like a 2 pounder with a 3 pounder, and then another three
Yeah.
pounder. Like I was literally at the back of the boat, and I had tears in my eyes. And I'm like, dude, like, is this really happening?
Yeah.
Like my sponsors told me to. I mean, like with Pulse Fish Lures, with Matt Airy has a spinning PJ and all them,
Yeah.
with them. But he said all you want to do is just go out, learn, and just catch one every single tournament. So I caught one, and I'm like, well, I need more than one. I'm like, man, I'm getting frustrated because 4 hours, like it was within 20 minutes I had one, and I'm
Right.
like, all right. I'm like, this is like me fishing out in my regular lake, and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Like, and then I was getting frustrated because 4 hours went by and it was nothing. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
And then it just happened when I just thought to tie that on, and I'm like, you know what, just give this a shot. I said, he's getting frustrated because he's getting stuck in these weeds, so in this grass, and he's trying to hit the grass. I'm like, why don't I try? Because my quarter ounce ain't going to get deep into that grass anyway because it's too
Absolutely.
light. And I'm down at 20 some feet, so it's not like it's going to be falling real fast, not that
Right.
deep.
Right.
And one thing led to another. As long as I just kept ticking that grass, I was just like, thank you, Lord.
Magical
You
times
know what I mean? Like, it
happen
was
like that.
just,
Honestly, the biggest thing I've learned, and this is for everyone too, do not try to force anything. I mean, do not force it because if you try forcing it, and that is not the God's timing, you will not, it's not going to happen. Trust me. I've tried forcing tournaments and, there's a verse, it's Proverbs 19:21, and it talks about, many are the plans in a man's heart, but the purpose of the Lord will prevail. And I will tell you that verse is very, very true because I can look back on certain tournaments and I will try to force it as hard as I can. But if it's not God's timing, it's not going to happen. So
well,
just roll with the ball, do the best you can, and let the
like
chips
it
fall where they
was,
fall.
like it was funny because me and my wife were going on back over the Bible and everything else, and I was just thinking about at that time when I was out in the back, like of like Job, how everything went wrong, and he's still believing, like he lost everything. You know what I mean? I'm just like, man, like, what do you do? I'm like,
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
here, buddy.
you can't
I'm
force it.
here.
Trust me, you cannot force it. I mean, prime example, I tried forcing Lake Hartwell's Bassmaster Open last year, and I was miserable. I have never been so miserable on Lake Hartwell. Lake Hartwell is one of my favorite bodies of water. I've done great on it, and I put pressure on myself because I had a great pre-practice, and I'm like, I'm gonna go out and destroy these things and try to win this tournament, and I put so much pressure on myself to try to win it. I was so miserable. And then finally, day two of practice, I'm like, all right, I'm just not going to force it. I'm going to roll with it. Whatever happens, happens. And ever since then, I've just let it be.
I I think it got to the point to where I was getting frustrated to where I forgot that fishing was fun.
Absolutely.
Then once I got to the point where I'm just like, hey, that's all right. No, I got one. That's all I said is, just get one every tournament. Then, you have a good shot at making it to regionals, as a co-angler. So, all right, he's been doing this. So let's just put this on. And,
Yeah.
oh, great. Look, I caught one.
Fishing
Then my eyes
fun.
open up. Then I caught another one. I'm like, oh, man.
Yeah, no, I
It
mean
was like,
that's what we always joke about is fishing is fun. That's what we always keep saying is fishing is fun because it is. You
it
can't get
is.
lost up in the whole, oh, pressure and you gotta do good and stuff. No, I mean you are not gonna do good if you put a lot of pressure on yourself. I mean, yeah, everyone wants to do good, too good. And you can put a little pressure on yourself to do good, but at the end of the day, it's fishing, and we all got it in for the same reason. And we all got in it because God put in our hearts, and we enjoy the outdoors. We enjoy casting and fishing, and that's why we got into it. So we can't forget that.
And that's what I was doing for those 4 hours. Like I was getting to the point where I was just getting frustrated, and I'm like, all right, my wife's down here. What's my dad gonna say? This is my first event. Everyone's gonna be like, you know what? Maybe you shouldn't have done this. And I'm like, you know what? Whatever. And then I'm just like, I'm just gonna have fun now.
Yep.
I got one.
Yep. No, I mean that's all you can
Now,
do is just stay positive.
but as you see there is that my wife just popped in, but she has real good prayers. Whenever she can praise, like she's on one of those golden child like children that I actually say. Like I no lie. Like the prayers that she says about different things about people and this and this,
Forget.
like good things that surround her. Like it is magical. It's like you sit back, like if I could go over sometimes and you just listen to her talk about her stuff, like
Prayer warriors
just
are needed. Trust me, everyone needs their prayer warrior, and luckily my girlfriend's pretty good at praying. So,
but it's
trust me, I
like
get you on
it's
that.
like he follows
Yeah.
her. Like he specifically follows her, and whenever she asks something, and there it is. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
she'll go out just randomly help someone because something happened, and then just you know boom, something magically like just good happens to her. You know what I mean? Like it's just like doesn't ask for nothing, doesn't ask this, and it's just like constant. Like it's just like it's just
Yeah.
amazing. You know what I mean?
No, I totally get you on that. Trust me. No, my girlfriend prayed at it. She told me she prayed at noon on day two. That because she told my parents, and they were down there at Eufaula. She said, I feel like I need to pray right now, and she prayed, and then 1:30 that happened. So hey, I don't know if that's a coincidence or not, but let me tell you, it sure did help. So he's it's pretty impressive some of the stuff he can do. So
It is amazing now. Like
yeah,
it's like uh, especially going before I moved because I used to live in Pennsylvania. I
yeah,
only moved down here 4 years ago. So moving from there to coming down to here, and I was yes, I believed in God, but that's as far as it went.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Yes, I know that blah blah blah. And then it came down to the point where I was just like, you know, good things happen, blah blah blah. And then I was that type of person. I'm like, well, no, you physically got to do it. So I was that guy for like a little while, like when I was getting frustrated. And then I said to her, I said, all right, you're ready for this because anything that good that happened, you're always supposed to credit God.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, no, you had to put effort and you had to physically do it. So then I brought it up at the point. I'm like, all right, I'm going to untie my shoes. I want God to tie them for me. So to bring up that point, now who's physically going to do it, me or is he going to tie him?
All right.
Said I physically got to do it, don't I?
Yeah.
And then it got to the point where we started going to church, and I'm like, you know what? All right, man, if you really want me to believe it,
Yeah.
show me a sign. Well, I started going to work, and I started seeing all these signs for churches, and like he literally showed me a sign. So
Oh
I went
yeah.
different ways, and I was going different ways to work, and I'm still seeing signs, and I'm like, I told him to show me a sign, and he literally showed me a sign,
God is a
like.
jokester sometimes, let me tell you. There's he, he will do things and he will show signs that are like, "Yep, I get it." Like you might not know at the time, but you look back and you're like, "Okay, understood."
Yeah, like it was actually literally funny. Like once I asked him, all right, just show me a sign, and once I started seeing, I mean, those signs could have been there well, they were there the whole time, but I've never noticed them. And then once after I said that, I started noticing them. Like he made me notice them. You know what I mean? Like he put it like I'm like, all right, all right, all right. And then one thing led to another. I ended up getting baptized down here, and as it
Awesome.
goes, it goes. You know
Yeah,
what I
no,
mean?
I
Like
mean he works in ways that none of us will understand until we get to talk to him, but yeah, no, it's pretty impressive some of the things that he'll line up. I mean, everything that I mean, as far as sponsorship goes, I can't owe anyone else but him because some of the stuff that had to happen for some of these sponsorships to come my way, there's no question that he was in the works on it. So it's pretty
Well,
cool.
that's what I was saying about the tournament. I said I didn't do that. I said like being back there in my first tournament doing that stuff like that just don't happen.
Right.
I said that just wasn't me. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I said that
Love hearing
that
that.
was all him. You know, here have fun again. You know what I mean? Like trying to say, all right, I was getting frustrated. Fishing's supposed to be fun, and he's like, here, have fun.
Correct. Because that's
So,
what, at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's having fun.
but
Right on.
once again, I appreciate you stopping by. Not going to
Absolutely.
keep up the time because it's getting kind of late for you.
Absolutely. No, we're good. Right on. That sounds good to me.
But alrighty, well, thank you guys for
Absolutely.
stopping in tonight to watch the stream, and hopefully we'll be able to do this again. And don't forget to go check him out on
Yep.
Instagram and also as well as his Facebook page. And eventually, he said this year he's going to have his
Yep.
YouTube channel up and
We're
running.
going to get that going here sometime this summer. We'll start experimenting, kind of doing some videos, shooting some stuff around here and stuff. So it'll be good. So keep a watch on that. And like I said, go follow my Instagram and Facebook. Facebook's Jacob Bigelow, and then Instagram is Jacob Bigelow Fishing. So
I appreciate it, man. You have a great
sounds good.
night.
Yeah, you have a great night too. See ya.
All right,